was too quiet when Chen arrived, earlier than his usual schedule. His breath followed almost instantly, the familiar weight of unease tugging at his chest. Usually Wn's voice or the faint clatter of her careless movements filled the space, today nothing. He loosened his tie and stepped inside, his sharp eyes scanning the living room only to halt. There Wn was lying, sprawled across the couch, one leg dangling off, head tilted to the side, lips parted as soft little breaths slipped through. A faint shimmer of drool glistened at the corner of her mouth. Theon's cold expression cracked, a chuckle rumbling low in his throat. This woman, she looked so much like a lazy, spoiled cat, sunbathing after a long day. His chest warmed despite himself. Silently he walked closer, crouching down beside her. A few strands of hair stuck to her cheek, and with brushed them back. His fingers lingered, stroking along her skin. Wn's brows knitted together in her sleep. With a tiny frown, she weakly swatted his hand away, murmuring incoherently, before turning her face the other way. Theon's lips twitched. For anyone else, that gesture would have been infuriating. For her, he leaned in and pressed the softest kiss to her temple, then her cheek, then the corner of her lips. She almost groaned, rubbing her face like a child, wiping her mouth before flipping to her side. He sighed, slipping an arm beneath her and pulling her against him. His breath brushed her ear as he whispered, voice husky yet tender, "Why are you here, not in bed?" As though answering, Wn let out a small hum, her lips curling slightly. His mouth coasted over her nose, then finally pressed against her lips. She released a tiny breath of contentment, eyelashes fluttering before her drowsy eyes slowly opened, staring right at him. Theon raised a brow at her dazed gaze, but before he could speak, she closed her eyes again and slurred voice dreamy, "Sir, you're so handsome." He stilled completely. Her little giggle followed, half asleep, and she reached up clumsily to touch his jaw. "Sharp, handsome face," she murmured before shutting her eyes again. His jaw clenched, his hand sliding to grip her chin firmly, tilting her face toward him. His voice dropped to a dangerous low. "Who do you think I am?" Still drunk on sleep, she cracked one eye open and with a teasing lilt whispered like a flirty stranger, "A man as handsome as my 𝐵𝐤𝐤𝐞." Theon froze, his entire body went rigid. "What?" His tone cut like ice. Wn simply sighed and buried her face against his chest, mumbling. He shook her lightly, his voice rough. "Who is this man you are dreaming about? Answer me, Wn." Her eyes fluttered open just a fraction. She squinted at him, lips curving faintly. "You're 𝐓," she muttered sleepily before her lashes sank shut again. Theon hissed, dragging a frustrated hand through his hair, his cold composure faltered with every second of her nonsense. Scooping her up effortlessly into his arms, he carried her bridal style toward their bedroom. As her head lolled against his shoulder, she blabbered again, voice muffled, "Don't forget my pizza, pineapple extra." He stared down at her incredulously. "Pizza?" Wn let out a little hum, almost pouty, curling into him as though he were her pillow. Theon laid her carefully on their bed, tugging the blanket snugly around her. His gaze softened for just a moment as he brushed her forehead with his lips, but as he turned to the washroom to change, his jaw tightened again. That cursed name, 𝐵𝐤𝐤𝐞, echoed in his mind like a bitter song. Was he her ex? The thought burned like fire. Theon sighed, shaking his head, discarding his tie with more force than necessary. His cold heart was already restless, but his possessiveness was louder. No matter who this 𝐵𝐤𝐤𝐞 was, Wn was his, and in her sleep or awake, she would better not forget it. The night was quiet when Wn stayed awake, blinking in the dim glow of the bedside lamp. Her lashes fluttered as she sat up groggily, realizing she wasn't on the couch anymore but tucked neatly under a blanket in the bedroom. Her lips curved faintly. Stretching her arms with a soft yawn, she slipped out of the bed. Her bare feet padded across the floor as she freshened up, splashing water on her face to clear the remnants of sleep. When she stepped out, she already knew where 𝐓 would be. The faint sound of oil sizzling guided her to the kitchen. She pushed the door open, and there he was, tall, framed, straight, his broad back stiff, sleeves rolled up, cooking with the precision of a man who hated disorder. Wn's heart warmed despite the cold aura radiating from him. She tiptoed behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist in a back hug. With a content sigh, she slid her hands under his shirt, pressing her cheek against his back. "You're back early today," she mumbled lazily, nuzzling deeper into him. He didn't soften. His deep hum was clipped, almost dismissive. She pouted, rubbing her nose into his back stubbornly. Then his voice cut through, sharp and jealous. "Dreamed about someone handsome, some 𝐓𝐤𝐤𝐞." Wn blinked, frowning. "Really?" she muttered, lips twisting. He snorted and stirred the pan a little too violently, the clatter of the spatula betraying his irritation. Wn's pout turned into a mischievous grin. "So he's jealous." Tightening her hold on him, she whispered slyly, "So that was a dream. I thought I was really in front of him." 𝐓 froze, his shoulders went rigid, but he still didn't look at her. Instead, he prayed her arms from his torso and placed them aside. "Let me work," he said indifferently. Her eyes lit with mischief. She bit her nail and mumbled under her breath, "Well, that was 𝐵𝐤𝐤𝐞, not 𝐓𝐤𝐤𝐞. You know his abs are no joke." 𝐓's hand stilled mid-air. His jaw ticked hard, the muscles straining, but he said nothing. Wn tilted her head, enjoying the reaction. "𝐓, you know." His voice cut her off low and final as he turned toward her at last. "No more, your handsome man, don't disturb me, go out." Her smile faltered. Her eyes glistened, lips quivering slightly before she lowered her head. He sighed, guilt tugging at him as he stepped closer. But just as he reached her, Wn whispered faintly, "Don't come to me." 𝐓's nostrils flared. He grabbed her waist, ignoring her protest, and lifted her onto the counter with ease. She squirmed, pushing at his chest. "𝐓." He caught both her wrists, pinning them gently against the counter, caging her in with his tall frame. His voice was gravel and silk. Don't resist me. She snorted, tossing him a glare. You are just too much of yourself. I hate you. His lips curved faintly before he dipped down, pecking her lips. Sorry, he murmured. She sulked, turning her head away. He kissed her cheek, her jaw, her nose, her temples, scattering kisses everywhere as he whispered, sorry, sorry, sorry. Mine wriggled, pulling her hands free from his grip. She pressed her palms against his shoulders. Stop it. Theon still watching her closely, while rolled her eyes with full attitude, mimicking his earlier tone. Don't disturb me. Go do your work. For a second, his cold mask cracked into a slow, amused smile. Her self deepened. Don't smile. She huffed before leaning forward and biting his neck lightly. I hate you. A sharp hiss left his lips, his hand tightening on her waist. When she pulled back, triumphant, his cold gaze burned into her before his mouth claimed hers. She gasped, trying to push him, but the fire in his kiss melted her resolve. Her arms wrapped around his neck, pulling him closer as their mouths moved, hungrily clashing with equal desperation. When they finally tore apart, foreheads pressed, breath mingling, Theon's lips curved into a wicked smirk. He whispered with a straight face, "You're already hot with just a kiss," making wine blush furiously. She was about to retort when a sudden smell hit her nose. Her eyes widened. Theon, the food. He twisted sharply. Smoke rose from the pan. He rushed to salvage it, but Wine stood on the counter, arms crossed, scolding. Look at you, playing around like a teenager when you should be cooking. Theon's brows shot up. He turned, feigning calm. You distracted me. Her jaw dropped. Me unbelievable. She hopped off the counter and slapped his shoulder before stomping out, muttering, mean, cold-blooded, stupid man. He chuckled under his breath, shaking his head as he turned off the stove, dealing with the mess. Later, when dinner was finally prepared, he found her sulking in front of the TV, hugging a pillow to her chest. She didn't even glance his way. Without a word, Theon scooped her up, ignoring her protest, and carried her bridal style to the dining room. She wriggled. Put me down. I don't want to eat with you. He sat her on the chair, gently sitting beside her. With surprising patience, he began feeding her, bite by bite. Like the gentleman he secretly was. While still the entire time, cheeks puffed, muttering between chews, cold man, mean husband, hot race. He let her rant, simply smiling faintly, slipping another spoon to her lips. When the meal was done, she stormed back to the living room, still sulking on the sofa. A little while later, Theon walked in with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. He took a sip from one, deliberately ignoring her. Her eyes narrowed. Is that for me? He shook his head, sipping again. Mine. With a little growl, Wine reached over and snatched it from his hand. She took a big sip, glaring at him. Mine now. He didn't fight it, just smiled softly, watching her as he sank beside her. With a smooth motion, he pulled her into his arms, backing her against his chest. His lips brushed her temple, his hand stroking her hair while she ranted on and on, calling him mean, calling him impossible. He only hummed a reply, a calm smile ghosting his lips. For everyone else, he was cold, ruthless, unreadable, but for Wine, he was nothing but soft. Few days later. For the past few days, Wine hadn't let Theon off easy. Every time he reached out, she sweated his hand away with a glare. Every time he tucked her hair behind her ear, she snapped don't. When he kissed her cheek, she looked him dead in the eye and muttered, I said don't. But Theon, the cold man he was, only smirked faintly. His voice smooth and teasing. If I just kissed you properly, if I had my mouth on you, you wouldn't resist, you would melt. Wine. Her cheeks flamed, her heart raged, and yet she threw daggers with her eyes. In your dreams. And still behind all her sulking, he remained quietly devoted. Buckling her shoes when she whined they were too tight. Pulling the blanket over her when she kicked it off in sleep. Ironing her clothes wordlessly when she was about to go out. She would catch him in those moments, hiding his tenderness beneath that cold mask. And every single time, Wine would giggle under her breath, whispering to herself, hold my ass, you're whipped, hubby. Theon always heard. His ears never missed it, but he never reacted, pretending as if her words didn't touch him. Now Wine was standing in front of the mirror, comb in hand, humming softly as she ran it through her hair. Theon sat on the couch, busying himself with something in his phone, his broad shoulders relaxed. She glanced at his reflection. He didn't look up. A slight smile touched her lips. She sighed dramatically and muttered just loud enough for him to hear. Thank God I get to see Usopp today. The effect was immediate. Theon's head snapped up, his dark eyes narrowing. In one smooth, predatory motion, he was on his feet. His strides were along his jaw, sharp with tension. Before Wine could react, he seized her wrist. What? She mumbled nervously. His eyes flicked down. She was holding her soft hair ribbons in her hand. Without a word, he snatched them, looping them around her wrists and tying them together in one sharp, flared motion. Wine gasped, tugging. Theon, my ribbons, I want to go. She didn't get to finish. He had already pinned her to the wall. Her bound hands lifted above her head, his body caging her completely. His breath fanned hot against her ear, his voice dropped, low, dark, dangerous. You want to keep testing my patience? Let's see how long it lasts before I leave you. His lips brushed her ear, making her shiver. Then, without warning, his tongue flicked against a sensitive spot behind her ear. Her knees buckled instantly, a whimper escaping before she could bite it back. Damn it, he knew her too well. She breathed heavily, eyes fluttering shut. He chuckled darkly, the sound vibrating through her. His long fingers trailed slowly from her jaw, down her throat, brushing her collarbone, then her neck. His lips caressed her earlobe, every moment calculated to make her tremble. Theon, Wine moaned, tilting her head back as though surrendering herself. That's it, he whispered, lips bursting down the side of her neck. Say my name properly, not his, never his. She writhed in his hold, tugging at the ribbons. He pressed harder against her, one hand sliding to her waist, while the other kept her wrists captive. His lips brushed her neck, then parted. A hot steam followed as he sucked at her skin, leaving dark, possessive marks blooming along her throat. She gasped, twisting. Her plea made him smirk against her skin. He finally loosened the ribbons, releasing her wrist. In a blink, Wine grabbed his collar and smashed her lips onto his. The force made him grunt, but his hand instantly curled around her waist, dragging her flesh against him. The kiss was messy, hot, and desperate. Her frustration, his jealousy, both crashing together. Without breaking the kiss, Sam half carried, half dragged her to the bed. He didn't untie the ribbon completely, only shifted it so her wrists were loosely bound again. Hovering over her, his eyes were blazing, his voice low and unhinged. You want freedom, not tonight. Her heart pounded as his mouth devoured hers again, slower this time, deeper, consuming every inch of her willpower. She moaned into his lips, her body arcing as his fingers trailed up her spine, making her shiver violently. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, his forehead resting on hers. His voice was a husky growl. You're mine, Wine, no one else, only mine. She whimpered, her hands straining against the ribbon. Thin eye. Say it, he demanded, brushing his lips along her jaw, then biting lightly at her throat. Say you're mine. Her knees felt weak even as she lay beneath him, his sensual touches undoing every ounce of resistance. I'm yours, she whispered, breathless, trembling. His lips curved into a dark, satisfied smile before he crashed his mouth back onto hers, his kiss bold and consuming. Wine melted beneath him, her sulking forgotten, her body pliant in his unyielding possessive hold. For everyone else, Sam was cold, untouchable, but for Wine, he was fire, hunger, and home. The night was quiet, the sheets tangled, Wine's fresh cheeks glowing against the dim light. She lay sprawled on Thames' chest, exhausted, her breath still uneven. His hand easily traced shapes down her spine, soothing her, his lips pressing tender kisses to her damp hairline. You okay, he murmured, his deep voice softened just for her. Wine soft cheeks puffing adorably. I missed Blomboso's fence and because of you. Hand juggled, pulling her closer, his chin resting atop her head. Good, that man doesn't deserve your time. Her lips curved despite herself, shyly pressing against his chest to hide her smile. You're insufferable, he's just an actor. And you're mine, he teased, wrapping her tighter. The rumble of his laughter making her heart skip. Time skip. Ever since that night, Wine didn't let up. She sulked dramatically, pouting whenever he reached for her, pretending to be mad. When he leaned down to kiss her, she would turn her head away at the last second, only to burst into giggles when he growled under his breath. While he worked at his desk, she would lean against the doorway, arms crossed, making the silliest jokes just to see his composure crack. And when he ignored her too long, she would stumble into the room, throwing herself onto the couch, crying, my husband doesn't love me anymore. Before pretending to faint dramatically, Tham would sigh, setting aside his pen, his gaze dark as it lingered on her small figure sprawled across the cushions. Wine, her eyes cracked open, mischiefs. Caught you, she giggled, rolling away from his glare. He tried to hold on to his cold expression, but the corner of his lips betrayed him. She stuck out her tongue, mocking in a low imitation voice. Don't you ever stop clinging, Wine. His stoic facade broke, a genuine smile curving his lips. For all her childish antics, he adored her for it. She turned his cold, sharp world into something warm, something alive. Another evening, as he washed the dishes, water running down his strong arms, Wine tiptoed behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist, cheek pressing against his back. Do you ever stop clinging? He asked in his coldest tone. No. She chirped, kissing his back before whispering, You're my favorite human. His mask shattered instantly. A smile tugged at his lips before he spun around, water dripping, capturing her face in his wet hands, and kissing her until she squealed, laughing. He lifted her into his arms, ignoring her protest, carrying her away from the sink as though the dishes didn't exist. When they went shopping, he was no different. His hand never left her, sometimes holding, sometimes gripping her waist. And when someone dared to glance at her for too long, his glare was enough to send them scurrying. Possessive, much Wine teased, poking his cheek. Proud, he corrected smugly, pressing her closer. She rolled her eyes, but her laughter rang through the store, and he swore it was his favorite sound. Now Wine sat cross-legged on the couch, watching television. Tham was on the phone nearby, his voice low and clipped, dealing with business. The moment he ended the call, Wine tilted her head, smirk tugging at her lips. Wosuk looks so handsome here, don't you think? She pointed at the television screen. Tham's jaw flexed. In 2 strides, he reached the TV, switched it off, and turned back to her with a glare that could cut glass. He hauled her into his arms, voice husky and dark against her ear. Say this name one more time, Wine, and you'll regret it. Her lips quaked, and she leaned up, kissing him softly. You're hotter than all of them combined. His heart melted instantly, though his face remained stern. He didn't fool her. Wine giggled, peppering kisses all over his face, laughing when stoicism finally cracked into a low, deep chuckle. I love you, Wine, he whispered, voice raw with truth. Crazily, hopelessly, and helplessly. Her heart swelled. She hugged him tighter, only to reach for hair ribbons in one swift motion, tie his wrists together. Yeah, he blinked, stunned before she grinned. You're mine, Mr. Jealous. She teased, taking the note. Tham's lips curved into a dangerous smirk. As he pulled her onto his lap, the ribbons straining, his voice dropped. Velvet and dark, I have always been yours. Wine gasped when the ribbons slipped loose. She scrambled to tie them again, but he caught her hands mid-air. I have something for you, he said casually, eyes glinting. Suspicious, she narrowed her eyes. What are you planning, Kim? Check my pocket. Rose raised, she shoved her hand into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her mouth fell open. Thank you bought so much last week already. This is freaking expensive. He shrugged utterly and felt worth you. Her throat tightened, eyes stinging. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face into his shoulder. Thank you, she mumbled, her voice trembling. He cradled her gently against his chest, pressing kisses into her hair, his voice tender. Don't thank me, just let me keep spoiling you, and you're my princess, my everything. Her tears spilled quietly as she clung to him, her heart aching with love. And though he teased her endlessly, and though she sulked and poked fun at his jealousy, both of them knew they were hopelessly, unhingedly addicted to each other, soft and reckless in a love that was theirs alone.